Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast. BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. There's been some talk lately about the possibility of Senator Jeff Merkley running for the presidency. I was just tuning into the radio the other day, and they mentioned that, if Bernie Sanders doesn't run, then Jeff Merkley should. Jeff Merkley is the senator from Oregon, and the other senator is, of course, Ron Wyden, but I don't really have much to say about Senator Ron Wyden. I mean, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? Okay, so what's going on with Jeff Merkley? Well, Merkley was also one of the only senators to endorse Bernie Sanders, as opposed to Hillary Clinton. He has a lot of things that are in line with the platform of Bernie Sanders. And get this, if Bernie does not run, Jeff Merkley would be sort of, someone that's actually talking about those same issues. That could be something that the Democrats would want to hear. I'd have to say, though, I think Jeff Merkley is going to be definitely in the mood for it. When I listen to interviews with him and he's asked about a potential run in 2020, I can almost just see the fire in his eyes. I think he's wanted this for a very long time. Probably ever since he was a senator, he wanted to be president. He just kind of gives off that impression when they've asked him about this. However, I believe that Merkley would be somebody who would not run if he knew there was no chance. If he knew that he could not, stand a fighting chance, I don't think he would run. And moreover, it's like, what would be the point of running against Bernie Sanders if you just have this sort of little Bernie platform where it's like you're like Bernie Sanders, just not as out there and you're not as well known and you don't have this massive following and fan base? I mean, Jeff Merkley has covered a lot of things. He's been featured on a lot of different news programs on MSNBC all the time. They mentioned him on The Opposition with Jordan Klepper. He's been all about, immigration, trying to keep people from keep families from being separated. He's talking about a lot of the things that the Democrats want to hear. He wants, to get rid of dependency on foreign oil completely down to zero. I mean, those are causes that the Democrats are behind. Now, the only thing he needs to do next is talk about possibly, exploring the concepts of thorium for the future. Knock on wood, let's see if that happens. But when it comes to somebody like Jeff Merkley, can he win? Can he defeat Donald Trump? It's possible. I'm not going to lie, because I think the Democrats could get behind him. And I would have to say that a lot of the lesser-known candidates really seem like someone who could be unifiers for the Democratic Party. On this channel, I've mentioned Representative Tim Ryan. I mentioned John Delaney. They have, the sort of platforms and this sort of, presence where they could sort of be someone who could bring all the Democrats together. Because that's not what Hillary Clinton did in 2016. No, absolutely not. I mean, they were split completely with Hillary and Bernie, the Hillary camp and the Bernie camp. And the Democrats are still fractured to this day. We now have growing and budding Democratic socialists, but we also have more moderate people that are going to want Joe Biden in 2020. And, it's like, when I listen to Jeff Merkley talk, I have to say he reminds me a little of Kamala Harris. And this is not a compliment. I mean, Jeff Merkley is somebody who, it's like, I don't get him as the most charismatic and welcoming speaker where he's just talking and you just want to keep listening because you just love every word and you're like, you just feel all inspired at the end. I do not get that feeling from him, and I don't get it from Kamala Harris either. The difference between Kamala Harris and Jeff Merkley is Jeff Merkley is at least talking about interesting ideas, whereas Kamala Harris is just totally lackluster, and I really hope that she is not the nominee because once again, it's just like she just doesn't come across as someone who just can energize the room and just build up that enthusiasm. Merkley at least has the issues. It's going to be a tough race for him. For somebody like him, like if Bernie wasn't running, he could represent, the progressive side and the people who are just really, really going to be fighting for things like, some of the hardcore progressive issues. He wants to, really reduce military involvement in Iraq, no permanent bases in Iraq. Those are good things. He was very opposed to the Neil Gorsuch nomination, held a talkathon overnight to stop Neil Gorsuch, and, strongly criticized the Republicans for not voting on Merrick Garland. He is in favor of a lot of things that the Democrats want to hear. Not to mention, somebody that I mentioned like Merkley could actually get the Democrats together. who even is the leader of the Democratic Party right now? I mean, is it Biden, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Maxine Waters? I mean, the Democrats do not have one solid leader that has united everybody, and they're going to need to have one to take on Donald Trump. One of the things, though, is I still have this feeling that the Democrats are going to try and put up a woman in 2020 to challenge Donald Trump, but we don't necessarily know yet. It's not certain. We don't even know if Elizabeth Warren is running, and Kamala Harris seems like she wants to run, and I think there must be money poured into her, but I don't think she's announced anything either. And you want to talk about money poured into someone, Eric Holder is getting more and more attention and notoriety, the Attorney General from the Obama era, and he was just sort of, a scandal-ridden individual the last time we heard about him, and then all of a sudden he wants to turn around and become president, the guy that said he wanted to brainwash African Americans so they stop using guns. I mean, that'd just be utterly ridiculous, but he was mentioned in CNN's top 6 individuals who could run on the Democratic ticket to challenge Donald Trump. What in the world? I mean, I'm not really a fan of Eric Holder, to be honest. And but Jeff Merkley doesn't really have any of that, sort of blatant, disagreeable nature, he doesn't have all those things that are just going to be turning off many people in the Democratic side. I mean, he has the consistent things, and then he also touches on progressive issues. That is something that the Democrats need to look for. And the only other one that I think I've mentioned so far doing these presidential uploads that really has those characteristics is Representative Tim Ryan from Ohio. But it's Merkley was the subject of an ad that was put out in Oregon where they were criticizing him for voting 96% of the time with Obama. But, it's that's good for the Democrats. They were that means that, he's touching base, but he's also venturing out into progressive issues. Obama's almost treated as a hero of the Democratic Party right now. I wasn't crazy about him, but a lot of Democratic voters will be. And it's not about me, it's about the voters. So it's also it really comes down to one thing. The Democrats really have been criticized for only trying to get a candidate that is going to be a good person. They look for the person who has a genuine conscience and says what they believe and is taking everything to heart and is just not a liar. That's sort of the Democratic ambition. They want to find a presidential candidate who is genuine. But one of the biggest things that they need to recognize is this is a political game, no matter who it is. I mean, there's always going to be things like greed and power-hungry nature going on in these sort of things. You just got to find the person who is not only talking about issues that you care about and is going to fight for issues that you care about, regardless of whether or not they actually believe them. It's more does this person have the chance to put what you care about into legislation? It's not so much about, is this person, good-hearted? I mean, I think that Jeff Merkley might have some of that, but that's not really what we need to focus on. I mean, what we need to focus on is, can they win? And are they going to put certain things into legislation, or are they going to become corporate sellouts for big business? And, I'm really kind of skeptical about Eric Holder. I think there must be some money going into a campaign behind him. I'm really getting that feeling as well with Kamala Harris and maybe Cory Booker too, that they're being sponsored by some large money. It's like when you sort of shake somebody's hand and you're just like, holy crap, I feel like, I just have the creeps. Well, that's what I get when I hear from those 3 individuals, but not from Jeff Merkley. I mean, Jeff Merkley really comes across as somebody, who is, I don't think he really has this enormous amount of money poured into him yet because he is one of the lesser-known candidates, and his candidacy for the presidency hasn't even really been explored that much yet. It's really just been mentioned, if Bernie doesn't run, should Senator Jeff Merkley take the helm? And, well, why not? But the whole thing that Bernie was all about was campaign finance. What super PACs are disgusting, by the way, and he relied on individual contributions. So the way you learn about a candidate is, it's not with hours of YouTube. It's you find out who is supporting them financially. But also with someone like a senator like Jeff Merkley, you can look at his voting record, and we talked about a lot of his issues. We talked about immigration. He is wants to remove foreign dependency on oil. He was opposed to Neil Gorsuch, and, he wants no permanent bases in Iraq, and he's very, very interested in other things associated with green energy, and wants to look at all of these things that the progressives are talking about. Well, if that's the case, what do they have to hide? I really think that the Democrats do not have to go with just sort of one of their famous names. They don't really have to just sort of look at somebody like Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren and think that, we have to go with them because they're the name that everybody knows. I really think that they could explore somebody like Jeff Merkley and find, that he's actually connecting with the causes that everyone on the Democratic side is talking about, and use a person like him as a unifier for the Democratic Party to make the party stronger, so when they take on the Republicans in the presidency, they have a fighting chance. But on that note, we don't even know 100% if Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. I was also listening to stuff where they said that Senator Jeff Flake might challenge Donald Trump for the Republican nomination for the presidency. Could you imagine that? I mean, Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona? Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen in real life, but the point is, someone might challenge Trump during the presidency, during the primary for the presidency. It could happen, and crazier things have happened, although we would be in sort of House of Cards territory, where people are kind of just going after the incumbent president in the primary and really fighting with an actual chance. But we can see all the same. I first heard about Jeff Merkley because of the email chains that he sends out, not like a newsletter, but just he sends out a lot of email updates, keeping people informed on progressive issues. I had no idea who he was. I don't even know who gave him my email address. I'm from West Virginia, not Oregon, and you just get linked up with a lot of progressives once you sign on with one of them. I get Bernie's, Our Revolution, the Sanders Institute, Tulsi Gabbard, and Jeff Merkley. And from time to time, Elizabeth Warren comes in with other, Democratic things. But ever since then, I've always been catching his name when they sort of mention him on the news. I think he likes being on television. I think he likes the spotlight. I think he likes being interviewed. And I think he likes, presenting his side of the story. And I can just see that sort of, those eyes that are just gunning for the presidency. I know he wants it, but he's not someone who's going to be impractical and going to be like, well, there's no chance that I'm going to win, so what's the point? He's not someone who's just going to bring ideas to the podium. Because what would be the point? If you have somebody like Bernie Sanders running for the presidency, why would you be sort of a more mild version of Bernie Sanders? You wouldn't really be bringing too many ideas to the podium. And that's one of the big reasons that Rocky Anderson didn't run for the presidency on the Justice Party ticket in 2016, because he was just like, Bernie is saying what I want to hear. I'm just going to endorse Bernie. For him, it's all about ideas. But that just kind of is what it is right there. Well, what do you think about Senator Jeff Merkley running for the presidency from the state of Oregon? Do you think that there's any chance that the other Democrats would be interested in something like this? If not, who do you think would be a good choice? If you have anything to say at all, please drop a comment below, and I will talk to you again soon.